Wistoria, Wand and Sword, episode number 3. When it comes to anime, light novels, manga, in this genre, you know, where most anime is going to come from light novel or a manga or web novel, right? It's very rare that there's just original anime. Sometimes it happens, but those are rare. In this medium, there's one of 3 paths that this medium typically takes when we find ourselves that information is being drip fed and not totally told to us. And most of the time it's done for one of 3 reasons. The first one is the author wants to drip feed it to us because he or she wants to drum up curiosity. They want to drum up curiosity in the viewer, and they want to have like revealing moments. In this specific show, right? What's the Magia Vander or Vanger or whatever it is? Like, what's the Magia, vendor thing? Why is it that there's this upper echelon and then you have the lower one? Why is it that the uppers don't come to the lower? What does the uppers do, completely? What's their job? Like, what are they doing up there than just sitting in their bed and sipping tea? What's the deal with the sky? What's the deal with the outside world beyond what their barrier has? So there's a few different paths that they typically go down. It's one to drum up curiosity, which totally makes sense, right? Like, you want to have curiosity within your viewers. You want to drum up emotion. And one of those really strong emotions you can have for a viewer or a reader to come back to your product is, drumming up a lot of curiosity. And I do think Wistoria, Wand and Magic is doing a really good job of drumming up said curiosity. The second path is they don't know. The second path is they'll never tell us, and they drip feed information because they don't have an answer. And more than likely, with this second option of medium, the author typically never gives us the answer. They just keep giving us more events, and they do the, oh, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. You like the fight though? Don't worry about that. Boobas. Oh, don't worry about that. Panties. Don't worry about that. Romance. Don't worry about that. Comedy. They just keep pushing it to the side. And I'm sure you can think of a few shows that you've watched, or maybe a few manga or light novels that you read, where they never really answered the questions you were curious about and then just ended. The third thing is, the third option, the third path, is when they drip feed information about the world, context clues, characters, they're figuring it out as they're writing. Typically, it doesn't really happen in anime too much, but in manga and light novels, right, they put together a pitch for a story. Maybe they create a portion of a story or an overview, and they get that submitted. And then when they do serialization, they begin kind of creating the story as they go. So a lot of times we find ourselves getting drip fed information because they don't quite know the answer yet. Kind of like One Piece. Like, what is the One Piece, right? It's like, is it just the path I took with my friends? We're the One Piece. It's like So a lot of times it's, and don't quote me on One Piece knowledge. It's not my show. It's not my jam. I have only watched a handful of episodes. I'm just using it as a shitty example. Okay, you can take anything else, use any other example, but just like, sometimes it's just that they're drip feeding because they're figuring it out as they're writing, and maybe they'll land in that first category to where they begin to slowly peel back the curtains on the answers, and then the other path could be true. They just never get there. They just kind of keep moving forward. So the reason I bring that up is with Wistoria, Wand and Sword, we're on the 3rd episode, and this is where a lot of viewers, including you maybe, is deciding whether you watch this or not. And one of the things that the first 3 episodes did, including this episode, was they're doing a pretty good job of introducing a good number of characters that can drum up our interest outside of just Will. This episode, we got to meet the 14-year-old girl who thinks of herself as Elfaria's maid or whatever, and she's doing double duty. She's student on below, but then also she's like an informant. She's the eyes and the ears on the bottom floors. She still got her ass saved by Will this episode, regardless. So it introduced a brand new character. We have Will's roommate, who may or may not be a girl. I guess we just time will tell. But regardless, this person, regardless of who or what they are, doesn't matter. The point is they're a badass magical artificer. Basically, they're a person who creates magical items, and they're the I don't even know what you would call. They're like they're the Morgan Freeman behind Batman's armaments and the things that make him cool. And they're really good. They created something that took down a frost monster. Obviously, it requires somebody of Will's talent and caliber to utilize the magical items that they're creating. But regardless, they're a badass magical artificer, and Will couldn't have asked for a better roommate to be paired up with, in my opinion. So this show is doing a really great job of creating compelling characters and giving them enough story within the little bit of time that we have with them on screen for us to have some nuance and some context and then some like interest drummed up. Like I myself, I'm interested in this crazy maid girl with the double personality and that she's reporting and his roommate. And I'm also interested in more about his teacher that has been helping him, right? We've been slowly peeling back the curtains for his teacher, but it's like I want to know more still. So I think that the show does a really good job of there. I think the show also really does a just like best of the season when it comes to action moments and when it comes to the sakuga, which is sakuga is basically like when a show pours their money and talent into a segment of the episode. They like the fight scenes and like it's just next level. Like I'm a big Danmachi guy. I love Danmachi, and it's very much that Bell versus Minotaur thing every time Will takes to a battle. Like his fight this episode between him and that frost monster. Oh my God, Jesus Christ. It was so effing good. So it does a really good job of that, okay? Now, if you're like me, and you may not be, and I think that's probably the better place to be, I get really stuck in the weeds sometimes with when shows don't quite reveal things I want to know that I think are really core to the story. So the core story here for me is Will and Elfaria's romance, or lack thereof. And this Elfaria chick basically got a Magia Vendor. She got recruited up to the top levels, and she basically went, "Peace, Will." And it took Will to say to her, she was ready just to dip out and leave him. It took him to say to her, like, "Oh, I'll make it one day too. I'll get there." She's like, But the reality is she left her, like, if they're supposed to be in love, and he obviously loves her, but if it's supposed to be more than one-sided, she wouldn't just dip. She would find another way. Just like if you met your soulmate today and suddenly had to part, you both would find whatever way it could be that you could be together. So that's a part of me being in the weeds about it, is like, this bitch left Will. She's up there creating magic, creating spells and doing whatever other work that these fools do, keeping up the sky or whatever, preparing for some ominous attack that's gonna come one day. But the whole time I'm thinking, like, yo, couldn't she have visited this dude? Like, is she restricted from going down below? Is like once you hit a level, like you just can't go? Well, no, that's not the case. Their informant today proved that they can go below. So she's just left him, dick in his hands, down there the whole time. I don't know about you guys, but like, if that Will's a better man than most of us, I think. Then because that happened to me. Like, yo, I'm not like, yo, maybe we reconnect one day, but I'm not like, you're not gonna be like my on the pedestal like type deal. Like, nah, like you left me. That's period. The end. There's no more end than you dipping out and not giving a shit. So I get stuck in the weeds with like stuff like that, and it's like, okay, well, we need to know more why. And this episode was like, oh, they kind of opened up with the why, like what happened, like how did she leave? But they just kind of drip fed a little bit of info, like she basically had to leave and she said bye to him, and then he had his declaration of never crying again to his teacher. I was like, we need more. We need more than that. What led up? What's the restrictive? Why did she have to leave? Why can't she never come back down? Why is she over there? It's like, does she not get breaks? You don't get a lunch break? You can't make a homie a peanut butter jelly? Like, so those are the things that I'm just like, man, those kinds of things kind of ruin the story for me a bit. And it's not going to stop me from watching the show. I think the positives really outweigh the negatives for me. But for, again, and I say this for several shows, for this show to become elevated, you know, out of a 7, for this to go into an 8 or an 8 into a 9, it needs to answer some of those questions like, who are the people attacking outside? Why can you not go and travel the rest of the world? How wide is the barrier? If this sky is fake and it's dark everywhere, is it really dark everywhere? And dark in what sense? Just nighttime? Complete darkness? What other things are out there? The dungeon. Why is it that they explore the dungeon, but these Magia Vanders don't? They have the peasants do their work. Does the dungeon lead to the outside? Where are these monsters derived from? How does the dungeon have an ecosystem? Again, these are all in the weeds things, but things that I kind of want to know the answer to. And they always reference dwarfs as well too. And it's like, okay, what happened? Did they just go extinct? Will's here, so is he a... I'm way over time. I could talk about this for the next 10 minutes. There's just so much else that for this to separate itself into that upper echelon of anime, if it begins to answer some of these questions along our journey into, you know, 12, 13 episodes, whatever we get, I'll be extremely satisfied because the positives are awesome. And if it could do that too, oh my God. If it can't, it'll just be like, oh, this was a good show with some really good sakuga. And that's okay too. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Can't wait to read your comments. Peace.